For my self-education project, I wanted to teach myself something very specific that applies to my field of study, music. In my field, it's very important to be knowledgeable about subjects that are very niche, as it helps musicians to learn more about themselves and gives them more outlets for expression. I've chosen to read the book Writing for Vaudeville by Brett Page. Through reading about vaudeville, a very popular form of entertainment in the late 1800s and early 1900s, I've gained knowledge that will help me with creating a large production, as most of the elements of a vaudeville production apply to large musical productions as well. Also, since I have taken notes over the 19 chapters, I could very easily teach a class about the art form of vaudeville or incorporate it into a regular music history class. This project also supplemented my Honors 490 Senior Capstone project, as I will be presenting a vaudeville show of my own on May 2nd. This book has provided me with vital information about the structural and creative aspects of making a vaudeville show come to life. It also contained one of the scripts that I'm using for my show in the appendix, The Art of Flirtation. I've learned about the setup of a vaudeville stage, the props that should be used, how to utilize lighting effects, the characters that should be implemented, the lingo of vaudeville, and how to create dramatic vaudeville acts of my own. The first thing that the book taught me, however, was the history of vaudeville as it progressed into what it was at its peak. It all originated with Olivier Bassolin, who composed and performed popular songs in France in the 14th and 15th centuries. As Bassolin was from an area known as the Valley of the Ville, or Val de Ville, the name of his songs progressed from that into what became known as vaudeville. Eventually, the idea of vaudeville was put on a stage, and other acts aside from songs were incorporated, such as dramatic playlets, acrobatic acts, magic acts, and comedy routines. It was because of its diverse nature and the fact that it had no dramatic sequence that it became known for a while as variety shows. One of the most important bits of information that I got from the book was actually in the first chapter, as it explained the order in which to place your acts. Although it mentioned more acts than will be in my own show, it did give me a good guideline for the order in which I want to present the material of my condensed show. Essentially, the idea is that you want a constant buildup of laughter from the audience until the final act, after which they should be hysterical. Although the stage for my vaudeville show is not ideal, the book gave me a very in-depth description of what is involved in the structural elements of the vaudeville stage. With this information, I was able to determine how I could transform my stage into the closest thing to authentic. According to the book, there should be 4 separate curtains which close off sections of the stage for acts of different sizes. These spaces are known as 1, 2, and 3, and the first curtain is called the olio. Since my stage only has 1 curtain, I had to incorporate only acts which use a small amount of space. Because of this, I'm only using 2 acts, or acts involving 2 performers in my show. The book also calls for a great deal of lighting of the vaudeville stage, which raised issues for me as well, as my stage doesn't have the necessary outlets for professional stage lighting. I am, however, working to improvise a spotlight for the actors, and I plan on using the different overhead lights to help create different scenes for the acts. Reading this book has drastically changed the way that I perceive projects as an artist, as it has helped me to teach me how to utilize my resources, how to organize a production, and how to think creatively when deciding upon the order of a program, always keeping the audience in mind. I can apply almost all aspects of producing a vaudeville show to how I approach playing the saxophone. Instead of setting different scenes visually or with dialogue, I can set scenes with my body language and my sound. I do plan to try to incorporate more theatrical effects to my future music performances as well. Since my profession is in fact a form of entertainment, I must always keep the audience in mind, and I feel as though if I were to add lighting effects to my performances which reflect the character of the piece, or to incorporate musical humor into my performances, which was very common in vaudeville, it would make the overall experience much more enjoyable. I'd like to close with a portion of a Vitaphone short film, which I'm using as one of the 2 acts in my show. It is an act entitled The Beau Brummels, featuring vaudeville legends Shaw and Lee.